If you've used AI on something with your name on it, you've had the thought, how much of this is still mine? I wrote a book with AI. I'm going to tell you exactly how, including the parts that make people uncomfortable. There's one reason I'm doing it this way. The book argues that you have to teach AI your world before it can do anything useful for you. A book making that argument while hiding how it got made would be an argument that fails its own test. So this is the whole thing: what the machine did, what I did, and where the line is. Pull up a chair. I'm Makita Boehm. I've closed nearly $10 million in tech sales over 4 years, earned 7 figures doing it, and here I teach professionals, teams, and founders how to use AI, automations, systems, and agents to create more money, time, and options. AI is moving at the speed of daily, and I help you keep up. There are 2 bad versions of this conversation, and you've met both. The first is the person who used AI all over their work and won't say so. That's a problem waiting to happen, and it's also just not honest. If the work is good, how you made it isn't shameful. The second is the person who typed, "Write me a book about leadership," got 60,000 words back, put their name on the cover, and calls that writing a book. You've read one of those. No point of view, nothing risky in it, nothing only that person could have said. There are a lot of them right now, which is exactly why the question matters more than it used to. Neither one is what happened here. Here's what did. It starts with thinking that already existed. You have this too, by the way, and most people never realize it's the asset. Voice memos, mostly. Me talking out loud, unedited, kids interrupting, working out what I actually think, prompts I wrote, corrections I made to earlier drafts, conversations where I argued with a machine and either changed my mind or didn't. That's the raw material, and it's the part that can't be generated. It's mine because I lived it. Then something reads all of that and pulls out what's in it. The beliefs. The lines I said better out loud than I'd ever have written. The stories with a real receipt attached. What's new versus what I've already said somewhere? People assume that's where the machine gets creative. It doesn't. It's being a very good listener with perfect memory, which is something I have never been about my own thinking. I say something into my phone on a Tuesday, and I've lost it by Thursday. If you've ever had a thought you knew was good and couldn't get back, you already understand why that step matters. Then it figures out where things belong. Does the manuscript already say this? Does this version say it better? Does it contradict chapter 4? Is there a hole this fills? That's a search across a couple 100,000 words, and it's beyond what I can hold in my head. Not because I'm not smart, because nobody can hold that, and neither can you, and you shouldn't be spending your judgment on it. Then it drafts. Yes. Prose gets written that I did not type. I'm saying that plainly instead of dancing around it, because dancing around it is how people end up in that first bad version. And here's what keeps it from being a stranger's writing. It drafts from my thinking into my documented voice against my worldview and my rules. It has the raw memo. It has a written record of what I believe. It has a file of my corrections, including the time it wrote a sentence starting with, "I'm be straight with you," and I told it that's not my vocabulary, and here's why. That correction is permanent now. It will never write that again. Then everything gets checked, every claim, every number, every source. This is the step you cannot skip. And it's the one that decides whether any of your work can be trusted. There's research in my book that cut against my own argument, and it went in because a book that only quotes what flatters its thesis isn't a book. It's an ad, and I'm nothing if not a scientist and a researcher than me. And this is the line: I own the perspective, I own the framework, I own what it means, and I own every decision. Nothing should go in that I couldn't defend in a room full of people who disagree with me. That's the test. And it's the one I'd give you. Not, did I type this? Could you stand behind it, no notes, while somebody pushes back because it's actually what you think? The boundary isn't just a feeling, it's a rule. Now the thing you're thinking, because it's fair and it deserves a real answer. If a machine wrote sentences, are you the author? Here's how I hold it. Authorship was never about who moved the pen. Books have had researchers and editors and collaborators and ghostwriters for as long as there have been books. And we've had a steady answer that whole time. The author is whoever the ideas belong to and whoever decided what's true. By that standard, yes, the perspective is mine. The framework is mine. The decisions are mine. The receipts come from my life, and I'd hold you to the same test. If you couldn't defend it in a room, you didn't write it, no matter how many words you typed yourself. Now go one level under that, because this is bigger than a book. The question people keep asking is whether you could do it without the AI. That's not the right question, and I've stopped answering it. The right one is whether you're the one setting the purpose, whether you're directing it, whether you can look at what comes back and tell if it's right, whether you learn from what actually happens, and whether you change the system when your situation changes. Run those 6 on your own work. If you can answer yes, the work is yours and you can stop apologizing for how it got made. That's agency. And agency is the standard, not independence. I go way deeper into this in my book, Context Training, the #1 skill to know in AI. But here's the short version you can take with you and start using today. Agency is not doing it all yourself. Agency is being the one in charge of it. 5 things stay yours. You decide what the outcome should be. You point the work at it. You look at what comes back and know whether it's right. You learn from what actually happened. You acknowledge it when it's wrong, and you change the system when your situation changes. If those 6 are yours, the work is yours. It does not matter how much of it your hands touched. Independence asks a different question. Could you do this alone? That sounds like a serious question. It isn't. You didn't build the road you drove in on, and nobody says your trip doesn't count. Agency asks the real one. Are you the one steering? If you're steering, it's yours. I built a business that runs on AI. If AI changed tomorrow, my business would have to change with it. That's a real dependency, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. It doesn't make what I've built fake. If that reframed something for you, send this to somebody who's been quiet about how they work. It's the permission they haven't given themselves. There's something else here I don't hear anybody saying. AI didn't hand me business expertise. What it did was let me actually run the reps. More offers made, more marketing sent, more delivery, more measuring, more operations, while I worked a full-time job and raised 2 kids. The doing produced evidence. The evidence built confidence. The confidence produced results I could repeat. Action, evidence, confidence, results. That's another one of my frameworks, the connector method, and I've used it on more than business. So AI didn't skip me past the learning. It got me to the learning at a pace I could never have run on my own 2 hands. That's a different claim than the one a lot of people are making, and I think it's the more honest one. And if you're using it to do more reps rather than to avoid them, you're doing the thing that actually compounds. Here's the part I most want you to take. None of this works without the foundation. The reason drafting comes back sounding like me is that years of my thinking are written down where a machine can read them. I have multiple degrees and have written books and 50-page research papers long before generative AI was a twinkle in my eye. My voice documented my worldview with the reasoning underneath, my corrections stacked up over time, my evidence with sources. Take that away, and this exact process gives you the second bad version. Same tools, same prompts, generic book. If your output sounds like everyone else's, you don't have a tool problem. Nobody ever taught it your world. So if you're asking how to write a book with AI, the answer isn't a prompt and it isn't a tool. You have to have something to say, and it has to exist somewhere outside your head before any of this starts, which is what the book is about. And I find that funny and also think it's the strongest thing about it. The book is the receipt for its own argument. Here's where I want to leave you, and it works whether or not you'll ever write anything. The question isn't whether to use these tools. That's settled, and the people still arguing about it are going to be arguing by themselves. The question is where your line is and whether you've ever said it out loud. Mine is that I own the perspective, the meaning, the decisions, and the final yes, and I can defend every sentence in a room. Yours might sit somewhere else, and that's fine. What isn't fine is not having one, because then you find out where it was after you've already crossed it. Write your line down this week. One sentence. What's yours no matter what? That's more money, because in a market filling up with work that belongs to nobody, work that clearly belongs to somebody is what people pay for. That's more time, because the reading and the sorting and the checking were never the parts that needed you, and they were eating the hours that did. And that's more options, because once your thinking lives outside your head, it makes more than a book. It makes everything after it. My newsletter is free, and it's at seedandsociety.com/newsletter. Every issue, one thing to go do with AI that same day, grants and funding you can actually apply for, 6-figure AI jobs where the role isn't technical, and open speaker calls. If this one was useful, rate the show and tell me what landed. And send it to one person trying to decide how honest to be about how they work. Until next time, continue planting the seeds for a better society.